Cool. Awesome. You have people who are in the know. Okay, so hackberry trees, one of the distinguishing characteristics, and you kind of have to look closely, but it forms these weird warts on it, and they're made of layers. So if you look at it, it's like a bunch of layers of toast. I'm hungry. You know, just on top of each other, and form these build up over time sort of thing. So no other tree has that sort of random scaly warts on it. But more importantly, if we look up, we see all those berries on these trees. They're small. Do you see them? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there any within reach? Just a little bit. Okay, so this is a ball. This is what this area is. So the caveman ways, they just chop the tree down. It's frowned upon nowadays. I'm not going to, well, I don't know, ask the people whose insurance policy covers the class. Go for it. Okay, I said we could toss her up.
That's why I brought Chris.
Okay, so hackberries. A lot of people hate hackberry trees in their yard. They're messy trees, they're weak trees. Every time the wind blows, branches break off. Every one of those berries quickly grows another seedling that's just waiting to destroy your lawnmower. People hate them. They're quick-lived. An old one, maybe 25, 30 years on the outside, but usually they're more like a 15 to 18-year-old tree. However, we all owe our existence to the hackberries. So, I talked about calories and how hard it is to get calories, and in particular, how hard it is to store calories. I didn't say much about storing calories, but storing calories outside your body is really difficult. In the case of fats, they go rancid. In the case of oils, they can get from nuts, pecans, walnuts, acorns. All those are great sources of calories, but they can't store. They go rancid. The only storable form of calories available to caveman times were hackberries. And what's neat is it goes back before cavemen. You've ever heard of Peking men? Peking men were a series of skeletons found in central China. They were dated somewhere between 500 and 750,000 years ago. They were pre-human. Homo sapiens showed up about 200,000 years ago. These guys showed up well before that. But they still had tools, they had containers, and in the containers they found a bunch of the hackberry seeds. So all around the world there are the hackberries, and everywhere that they were found, the cultures there flourished. They were usually the first ones to invent different tools and art and weaponry because they had a storable form of calories. So if we were able to get one of these seeds down without chopping the tree, it's a fairly large seed with just a thin bed of pulp, and then we have some. Good jump. All right. So I mean, just pass these around. The berries themselves aren't very big. The seed inside, the kernel, isn't much smaller than the seed, than the berry itself. But the skin forms an airtight barrier around the seed. The seed is loaded with oil and protein. Let's move over here. So the seed is loaded with oil and protein. Oil and protein are calories. Calories is life. But the coating around it sealed it tightly away from the oxygen enough where they wouldn't go rancid. So they could store these in baskets. And they had storable forms of calories that they could use for later. So how do they use them? Well, you're looking at the original granola bar. They would take the seeds, mash them up in a mortar and pestle, and then just kind of the resultant of the skin, the pulp, and the seed, all that, mash it up into a paste. The Waco would make it into balls, but everyone else would make it into bars. And then they toast it by a fire some, and what you get now is a granola bar, a hard, crunchy. That's what it tastes like. It tastes like a granola bar, like the cheapest granola bar you can buy at HEB. It's a hard, crunchy one. but they have enough sugar and so forth to stick together into this bar. And then they would store the berries just as the berries, and then they would make it as needed. Or if they had a hunting trip or a scouting party or a war party coming up, they would make a bunch of the granola bars to take with them. Because the bars, once it's been ground up and toasted, it lasts 2-3 weeks before it starts getting a little funky. But otherwise, yeah. So going back to the cultures and everything, why we all are existent. So the climatologists and paleontologists and all the ologists that study the past have said there's been somewhere between 7 and 12 ice ages that humans have lived through. And each one almost wiped us out. The areas where humans survived were the areas rich with hackberry. So the thought is that the humans with the hackberries, they were the ones that survived these catastrophes because they had the calories. So we're all descended from people that were lucky enough to live back then near hackberries. So that's kind of cool that way.
You find the berries on the tree year round?
So the berries start, they'll be green from about June until right about the beginning of October. And then in October they'll turn this red color. And then they'll be on the tree until something eats them or they drop. So pretty much if you see it red after October or just after October, you can eat it. Even in March, it's not. A lot of the sugar is going to be gone, but the protein and the oils are still in there.
So who gave the tree the reputation for being a trash tree that we have to cut down? Because that's the reputation, like in the city.
Yeah, because it's messy, it's weak, it's short-lived. It drops branches on neighbors' houses and cars and so forth.
Aren't the roots invasive trees?
Every one of those seeds wants to become a tree, so it produces lots and lots of seedlings. Now, what's surprising, the wood is fairly soft and breakable, but it was considered the third best wood for bow and arrows. It's fairly lightweight. Pardon? Yeah, flexible and tight grain. So after Osage orange and then hickory, this beat out even like persimmon or something. It was very commonly used for the bow and arrows by the Native Americans. It's also a very good carving wood, and if you're a woodworker, they rate the color of wood. There's a scale. I don't remember what it is, but the hackberry has the whitest of all the wood. It was used like the painted churches of Fredericksburg and a lot of the missions around here. A lot of the intricate carvings were done out of the hackberry.
Edible in the raw form?
Yeah, edible in the raw form. Oh, so side note, the nut is hard. So yeah, you can suck them, but it's best to mash it up between two rocks because just trying to crack it with your molars, a 50-50 bet on it, the molar or the seed. You don't have the jaws and teeth of your caveman. Yeah. So yeah, another name is the sugar hackberry. If you go more South Texas or West Texas, there will be the desert hackberry, which has thorns, because everything in the desert has thorns. It's like just part of the club. But the seeds are pretty much the same.